Hi, I'm Sam from Tarot for Writing, and I'm so glad you're here. Today we're going to talk about the Page of Wands. Isn't he beautiful? By the way, the deck I'm using in this series is the Smith-Waite Centennial Edition from US Games, and this is the Tarot in a Tin. So like I said, this is the Page of Wands, and this is part of a series I'm doing where I'm spending a little bit of time every day with a card of the tarot deck, going through them in order. It was inspired by Esther over at Mindful Tarot. And you can also follow along on Instagram. There's a hashtag that I have in the description below. And what we're going to do is go over a brief definition of the card, zero in on a detail, and then I'll share my thoughts on how I use this particular card in my creative writing. I'm a paranormal fiction romance author, and I use tarot every day to help inspire my craft. So let's start with the definition. So if I'm just purely reading for myself, pulling my card for the day, or reading the cards for a friend, what I kind of see in this card is that it's the start of a new creative project. This is often when I'm just setting out a spread for myself, trying to figure out what's next. If the Page of Wands shows up, it's time to start a new book, to at least start thinking about the idea and then maybe even the outline for a new novel. It's also about adventure, about leaping in. I get very much Fool energy from this card. Maybe it's the feather in his hat. Maybe it's the wand that looks a little bit like a staff. Maybe it's the way he's standing or the way he's dressed. I don't know what it is, but it's a younger, slightly more fiery, more enthusiastic, more daring fool who is ready to jump in. Definitely somebody with more motivation. And last but not least, this card is always a good reminder for me to be more self-confident, because doesn't he look very confident in himself and everything he does? So that's the brief definition. Of course, your interpretation of the card may vary, and I would love to hear what the Page of Wands stands for you. So if you feel so inclined, I'd love a little comment. Maybe we can have a conversation about the card and how we interpret it. Next, let's zero in on a detail. And I don't know how, but I never paid attention to the shapes in the background. They look like pyramids to me. They look like the great pyramids in Egypt. And that makes me think, for one, of travel, of seeking adventure, kind of deepening the meaning that I gave you in the definition there for me as I started thinking about this, because I don't know about you, but for me a trip to Egypt to see the pyramids would be quite the adventure, and definitely something I might have to put on the bucket list. And then I also know that Egypt, anything to do with Egyptology, was very big during the time period when the RWS, the Rider-Waite-Smith, was created and first published. And going even a little bit further, the occultists that first worked with the cards in a divinatory way were convinced that they came originally from Egypt and were passed down to us through the generations, and that there was actually some hidden knowledge, some secrets that the ancient Egyptians hid in the cards. Now, I'm not sure if it has been completely debunked, but there seems to be no credible evidence that this was the case. But it's kind of interesting to see that Pamela Coleman Smith, or Pixie as she was also called, put a hint of Egypt in the Page of Wands cards. Now it makes me want to go back through the cards and see if there's something else I can find that hints on this, hints back to this history of the tarot. Great, and let's move on and talk a little bit about how I would use the Page of Wands in my fiction writing. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about if I'm pulling cards to develop a character, what it would mean for me there, and then I also tend to pull cards as I'm writing chapters just to layer a little bit more interest in. So I'll give you some ideas of what I might pull from the card in those instances as well. So for the character, the first thing I think of is somebody who's traveling or someone who loves to travel. I also get a sense of a character who's a free spirit from this card. Somebody who's either fairly young or young at heart. And then I could also see just in his stance and the way he's wearing his cape and this whole sort of fancy outfit, it kind of makes me think of an actor or some sort of artist. Or how about a rock star? You know, we could combine the dressing up part with the adventure travel and have a rock star who tours the world. That would be a fun character to build a romance novel around, wouldn't it? And then when I'm pulling this card just to inspire myself before I sit down to write a chapter, some ideas that I could pull from this are somebody who is taking part in a community play. Again, the clothing and the way he's standing there is what's inspiring me there. Or somebody who's dressing up for a costume party. As I'm recording this, we're just a few days past Halloween, so it would be fun to think about either a Halloween party or some sort of other party where people dress up and include that in my romance novel. It would be a fun way for my characters to interact without knowing exactly who they're interacting with. You know, that would be fun if they're starting out as two people who don't like each other, like enemies to lovers type of story. But then they're having this profound connection in this scene where they don't know that this is the person that they absolutely hate. So that could be interesting. And then going back to the idea of travel, we could have our people take a trip together. You know, either the couple in a romance or the character with some other friends or family members. And it doesn't have to be, you know, a world trip or a cross-country trip. It could just be going out somewhere for the day, just a change of scenery and having some fun new experiences together. Or it could be them going to an exhibit or to a museum. You know, they may not be able to travel to Egypt, but maybe they can go to an art exhibit. Maybe they can go to a local museum or a museum of history or anything else that's already established in the fictional world. Or they could go dancing, you know, just go out on the town and have fun. And then pages always make me think of news. And with the Page of Wands, maybe we could have some news or a message about a creative endeavor of some sort. Maybe somebody gets accepted into art school. Maybe somebody's artwork was accepted for an exhibit. Maybe somebody got a big job, a book proposal. You know, anything creative like that they're either trying to make happen, or maybe it is part of the way that they make their living and it's a big deal. And of course that news could be good news or bad news depending on what serves the story better at that moment in time. You know, sometimes we need those bad news to keep the tension up and to keep the story interesting and to not have our characters just sail smoothly from first meeting to their happily ever after. Because where would be the fun in that? Wouldn't be very fun to write, and it wouldn't be very fun to read either. And then I was thinking again with the whole energy of this being a younger person, which is how we often read the pages in the tarot, we could have somebody who is joking around. Maybe even someone who's playing a prank on somebody else in the story. Again, in romance, it could be the love interest, or it could be, somebody related, somebody else, a neighbor, an aunt, you name it. And that could get interesting on how the love interests reacts to these pranks, this kind of immature behavior. Is it something they share and they enjoy? Or is it something that kind of makes the other one second guess everything about their relationship? I could see that going either way. Or again, playing on the whole youthful energy idea, we could introduce a kid brother or a kid sister who could cause all sorts of trouble, who could open their mouth at the wrong time and share things that really should not have been theirs to share. They're always perfect for interrupting in a kiss that was about to happen, or an important conversation that our couple needs to have, kind of increasing that tension there. And of course, they can provide some comedic relief if, things were getting a little too heavy and a little too emotional, and we just need to have a quick laugh to kind of keep things balanced and keep them from getting too emotionally heavy. So those are my ideas, just off the top of my head, how I would use the Page of Wands. Usually when I'm in a story, when I'm writing a particular scene or a particular chapter, what I already have in mind for the scene or what's already going on the page makes me look differently at all these little symbols and depictions of the card. So when I actually pull the Page of Wands for a particular story, I might have some completely different ideas. And that's kind of the beauty and the power of it. I can draw the same card in 3 different novels, and it will inspire me to create something completely different in each of those 3 instances. That's why I love tarot as a tool for my creative endeavors. I hope you do as well. If you do, I'd love to hear about it. And regardless, I hope you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it, no matter how you used the tarot. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. I would love to have you. And I will continue this exploration of the cards through the minors, and then we're going to wrap up with the majors toward the end of the year. And of course, we're going to continue tomorrow with the next card in the suit of Wands, which would be the Knight of Wands. I can't wait to share my thoughts with you. I'll see you then.